שנקרא שלווה, הדרך לשם ארוכה מפרכת, ומתחילים כעת ללכת, אי שם יש מקום.
Shalom and welcome to all. My name is Colette Phillips and I am a social entrepreneur and the founder of Get Connected, a platform for cross-cultural business networking that's based in Boston. I am so very honored to moderate this very special event dedicated to the cultural heritage of Ethiopian Jewry, also known as Beta Israel. In order to dive into the fascinating and less known story, we will explore today the ancient holiday of Sigd. We will also tell the story of the community's journey to Israel and their integration process. Historically, Jews living in Ethiopia would mark the renewal of the covenant between God and the Jewish people and pray to return to Jerusalem. Now that a majority of Ethiopian Jews live in Israel, the community marks the holiday by celebrating the return to their ancestral homeland. Since 2008, Sigd is celebrated as a national holiday in Israel. In a few days, on November 21st, we will mark the 36th anniversary of Operation Moses, a large-scale rescue mission initiated by the State of Israel, which brought 8,000 Jews, Ethiopian Jews, from Sudan to Israel in just 7 weeks. A few months later is the 30th anniversary of Operation Solomon, another covert Israeli military operation to airlift 14,000 Ethiopian Jews to Israel. How has this geographical shift affected Ethiopian Jewry's ancient, rich culture? What has their experience been integrating and assimilating and acculturating into Israeli society? And what can the entire Jewish community learn from their experience, and even those of us who live in America? Sigd is an opportunity to learn and teach about the remarkable story of this community, including its rich history and culture, which, if you are Jewish, is also part of your story as well. I will be joined today by a distinguished group of speakers and performers from all over the US and Israel. Yes. We will start with Professor Ephraim Isaac, the first professor and founder of the Department of African and African American Studies at Harvard University, who will share his profound knowledge on the background and evolution of Ethiopian Jewish traditions. Later on, we will hear from Osra Friedman, a groundbreaking social activist and social entrepreneur, who also serves as a top rank official in Israel. Osra will highlight a partnership between Haifa and Boston aim to support the Ethiopian community and culture. Oshra will be followed by Deputy Consul Kassa Bainasai Harbor, an Israeli diplomat currently serving in Israel in Miami's office, consulate. In between, we will enjoy songs in Amharic and Hebrew performed by the talented songwriter and singer Tamar Reda and her band. I would like to thank my longtime friends at the Israeli consulate in Boston for hosting this event. And I would also like to extend my deep appreciation to CJP for co-sponsoring this program together with Get Connected, the Consul General of Israel in Miami, Hebrew College, Lapin Foundation, and Northeastern University's Hillel. And now I would like to begin the program with remarks from the Acting Consul General of Israel in New England, the Honorable Danielle Agranov. Please, Danielle.
Thank you, Colette. And thank you to the many viewers from all around the world who have joined us today to honor, celebrate, and learn about the Sigd tradition. As a diplomat representing Israel and its people abroad, I have set up the top of our priority the goal of reflecting and cultivating the diversity and multicultural nature of the society in Israel. Today, more than 125,000 Ethiopian Jews live in Israel. Even though they constitute less than 2% of our population, their contribution is immeasurably significant. The representation of Ethiopian Israelis is gradually growing. They are serving as public servants, ministers, members of Knesset, Israeli parliament, and IDF officers. They are diplomats like us here, TV stars, actors, journalists, academics, and artists that performs on the biggest stages around the world. However, we're acknowledging the fact that nothing has been achieved easily and realizing that there is still a long way to go. As an immigrant society, which initially strived for a new Israeli identity, a lot was lost on the way. Many old traditions were lost under the good intention of creating a Middle Eastern melting pot. Those old traditions are what we are highlighting and celebrating today. With honoring the Sigd tradition, which is a holiday that emphasizes the everlasting connection of the Ethiopian Jews to Israel and Jerusalem, we at the consulate appreciate the opportunity to host this wonderful team of speakers and one fantastic artist, and look forward to bring to you at home this Ethiopian-Israeli experience. I want to use this opportunity to thank all the participants. Your presence and enthusiasm make this program unique and meaningful. Especially, I want to thank to our cultural attaché, Amir Tadmor, for spearheading this project. Sigd Sameach, happy Sigd, enjoy.
Thank you, Danielle. And I would also like to thank the former Consul General, Ambassador Zev Boka. Even though he is back in Israel, he was very instrumental in inviting me to participate in this. And now I am so excited to introduce to you our first guest, Professor Ephraim Isaac, a prolific Jewish historian and linguist of Ethiopian Yemenite descent. An academic, Professor Isaac has taught at Princeton, both the university and the seminary, as well as Hunter, Bayard, Hebrew University, and most notably Harvard, where he received his PhD and was in 1969 the first faculty appointment in the new African and African American Studies Department. Professor Isaac is a present fellow at Butler College. He is conversant in 17 different tongues, is a genuine peacemaker who has contributed immensely to the advancement of well-being worldwide. A co-founder of the ad hoc Ethiopian Peace Committee and the Peace and Development Organization. Professor Isaac has worked to end conflicts in the Middle East, Ireland, and Africa. In 2010, he helped negotiate a ceasefire between the Ethiopian government and the opposition forces after 25 years of conflict. Hello, Professor Isaac, and happy Sigd.
Hello, Miss Colette. I thank you very much for your kind introduction. You've put a very heavy crown on my head. I might fall. Anyway, I also am very happy to say I thank Ambassador Amir Tadmor, who had been in touch with me, and Consul Daniel Agranov. And I'm also very pleased to meet Consul Casa and all the other distinguished participants. Thank you very much for inviting me to say a few words. I would like to say something about the place of Sigd Festival in Jewish and Ethiopian culture. And I want to speak about that because many people really do not understand what the origin and source of Sigd is. In order to explain the importance of Sigd, let me first say something about what we call Mo'adim in Jewish tradition. Mo'adim are festivals. There are two types of Mo'adim mentioned in the Torah and in the Hebrew Bible. One is what we call the Hagim. Hagim are Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. They were called Hagim because people went up to Jerusalem and they moved around the temple. Hagag in Aramaic means that. In fact, the Arabs took that very word. Hag is Hajj, is the same word. So these are pilgrimage festivals. They are the only festivals during which time we can greet each other by saying Hag Sameach, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. I have often gone to synagogues where they sometimes have greeted me Hag Sameach even on Rosh Hashanah, but that's a mistake. And even on Yom Kippur, that's a mistake. Now, this is one group of Jewish festivals. The second group is what we call Yamim Noraim, the major solemn holidays, particularly Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We have different greetings for those. Now, where does Sigd fit? There is a third group of Jewish festivals which people are not aware of as being national festivals rather than religious festivals. The first two are religious festivals. The national festivals are that most people are aware of, Hanukkah, which is forthcoming, and Purim. What is Hanukkah? Hanukkah is the celebration of the rededication of the second temple after it was destroyed by Antiochus Epiphanes. And Purim is the celebration of the era when Haman tried to destroy the Jewish people, and thanks to our mother Esther, the Jews were That's why I call them national holidays, during which time we can say Hanukkah Sameach or Purim Sameach, not Hag. Now, why am I saying though? In Jewish history, there is an event that took place in the time of Ezra, around 400 BC. That was the rebuilding of the Jewish temple and rededication. So now, let me read for you briefly in Ge'ez and translate it for you from the book of Ezra. I could read it in Hebrew, but I'd rather read it from Ge'ez because we are talking about Ethiopian Jews. It says, وأما تسؤول الصلبة ورهو وتجابو دقيق إسرائيل وصوموا ولبسوا ثكوا حامد دجبر صوموا. It says, and the children of Israel came together and they put ashes on themselves and sackcloth and on the وتفلتوا دقيق إسرائيل كله حزب نكر وتغنيوا بين دقيق يومه, and they also separated themselves from other people, I mean from foreigners, and they started talking about the sins of their forefathers. وقوموا كلهم بابا مقوامهم وسجدوا لإግዚአብሔር أملاكهم, and they stood up and then they prostrated themselves to God. وسجدوا. Now, then it repeats at the bottom where it says وإنت تهيوا كله نفس ولك يسجدوا كله whatever. So the word Sigd is related to the Aramaic word is God. In the second commandment, the 10th commandment, it says Lot is God the ham wa In other words, I'm using it as a Yemeni accent. You do not prostrate yourself before Allah. So sagada or sigd is a word derived from an Aramaic word. Many people don't understand that, but I want to emphasize it's an ancient Jewish word. It basically means to prostrate yourselves. Now, it's very interesting to me that most of the world, most of the Jewish world, still celebrate the national holidays, the liberation from the Hanukkah and Purim. But why are we not celebrating the rebuilding of the temple? Indeed, right here in the book of Ezra, is repeated in Nehemiah too, in Nehemiah, and also repeated in Ezra, that the children of Israel indeed came together, they fasted, and they prostrated themselves before God when the temple was rebuilt. I remember in 1971, when I first attended the sixth festival in Ethiopia, we came to a place called Walaka down, and then we walked up on the mountain, and this book of Ezra was being read. So the Ethiopian Jews have not forgotten that in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, the Jews actually had a day of festival. I am very pleased to say that the Ethiopian Jews have preserved this ancient festival that fits quite well into the history of the Jewish people. So now, not only do we have 3 festivals of what we call Hagim, and the 2 festivals of Yamim Naraim, we have 3 festivals of national holidays. The liberation of Jews from oppression or the rebuilding of the temple. And I think I don't need to say much more, but if there is any question, I will answer. So the point I've tried to make then that I am very happy, I'm very proud that Ethiopian Jews preserved an ancient Jewish Moed festival, or a Jewish festival when Jewish people came together to commemorate the rebuilding of the second temple. And may this be a great day and that brings all the Jewish people together. I'm very sorry, I'm kind of talking very fast because, as you all know, there is a big trouble in my country of Ethiopia right now, and I have not been sleeping. I'm chairman of the Ethiopian Peace Committee, as you said, and so if I talk too fast and maybe you did not understand, I apologize. But this is so far what I would like to say. Maybe I'll add one thing, that regarding the Ethiopian Jews, I think I was one of the first people who went around lecturing in 1985, 86 during Operation Moses, and I gave a lecture in Boston. At that time, I'm very pleased to say that the Boston Jewish community also heard my lecture, in which I again at that time emphasized the place of Jews in Ethiopia, in the Ethiopian Jews in Jewish culture, by emphasizing that the place of Jews in Jewish history is number one mentioned even in the Torah. References to the ancient Cushites and Sabaeans and others, and the trades of King Solomon and so on. And then I also emphasized the place of Jews in Ethiopian culture is ascertained by the linguistic analysis. Professor Polotsky of Hebrew University and others have written about the survival Jewish terminologies in linguistic Aramaic. And thirdly, the importance of the preservation of some lost Jewish works, the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees. And I myself translated the Book of Enoch, which is published by Doubleday Press. And today, most scholars in the world believe that this is a very, very important Jewish work of 2,000 years. It's preserved and reserved only in the Ethiopian Ge'ez language. We found fragments of it in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But so I just wanted to remind you this. For those of you from Boston, you may remember the extensive lecture I gave about that subject. So today, as a footnote to that, then I tried to explain not only the place of Ethiopian Jews in Jewish culture, as I did in those days, but the place of Sigd in Jewish festivals. And may Hashem bless all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Amen.
I would love to ask, this is such a fascinating and important historical, story and connection. I would love to ask, what ultimately led to immigration or aliyah of the Jewish community of Ethiopia, having lived in complete isolation from the rest of the Jewish world for more than 2,000 years?
Contrary to what people think, Ethiopian Jews actually never separated themselves from Jerusalem. As a matter of fact, there are inscriptions on the Mount Sinai about Ethiopian pilgrims, both Jews and Christians, coming to Israel in the 4th century. And throughout the century, even in the medieval times, the kingdom of Prester John is mentioned when the Crusaders occupied Jerusalem. They reported about Ethiopians and Ethiopian Jews in the land of Israel. And not only that, actually, maybe I should even go back where Jerome Lobo, Jerome, the translator of the Vulgate, very famous person in the Catholic history, says in one of his books, Cotidie acipimus multitudine de Ethiopia de India. He says, this is in the 5th century, 4th century. Jerome, by the way, was a very interesting person who lived in Jerusalem, and he translated the Bible into the Vulgate. Quotidian, today, or these days, we receive multitudes of people from the land of Ethiopia. And I guess he didn't distinguish the Jews and the Christians. So Jews have been coming to the land of Israel. And throughout, in fact, there is something called Hasidash Mala now, which there was a bird that flies in the summertime up north, and in the winter time it comes down. And they used to look at those birds and say, oh, how is our Jerusalem? So actually, there are also stories of pilgrims that have died in the Sahara Desert in Egypt on their way to Jerusalem in the 17th century, 18th century, 19th century. So the fulfillment of the coming of the Jews to Israel today is a fulfillment of an ancient activity, an ancient aspiration, an ancient hope, ancient belief of the Jews of Ethiopia. Jerusalem, even, by the way, even to non-Jews too in Ethiopia, is a very, very, very important name, Jerusalem. So, of course, Jerusalem is identified with Israel, the land of Israel. So, contrary to what people think, the connection of the Ethiopian Jews to the land of Israel is not something that came recently.
Thank you, Professor, for this fascinating and eye-opening conversation. The beautiful photos you shared with us, documenting the Jewish community life in Ethiopia, are the courtesy of Museum of the Jewish People in Beit Hafusot, Tel Aviv. And now we are going to have a wonderful song, Ethiopian-Israeli, putting us in an Israeli-Ethiopian groove, as they say here in America. Musician Tamar Rada presents the integration of the young generation of Israeli Ethiopians. Rada, who immigrated to Israel from Ethiopia as a child, produces music that combines her two cultural worlds, Israeli folk music with an African Caribbean beat. And you know I'm from the Caribbean, so I love that. This combination reflects her own interpretation of contemporary Israeliness. Tamarada presents a mixture of fresh songs soaked with grooves and good vibes, which reinforces her status as the next best promise in the Israeli music scene. Tamar is currently in the process of releasing her second album, a first single from which is coming out. Tamar and her band, take it away.
Thank you, Colette, for this great introduction. I'm really happy and excited to be here with you guys and celebrating the Chag Sigd with you. And I also like to thank the Israeli consulate in Boston for this important event and for inviting me to be here with you. The next song, it's called Abba Yehoy. It's an uplifting song in Amharic. It's talking about a renewal and new chapter in your life. It's talking about blossom and happiness, and let's dance. That's it.
አበባዬ ሁይ ለምለም አበባዬ ሁይ ለምለም ባልንጀሮቼ ቁሙ በተራ ለምለም እንጨት ሰብሬ በትክን ስንሰራ እንኳን ቤትና የለይም አጥር እደጀራለሁ ኮከብ ስቆጥር ሆበል ማሰንቆ ጎበዝ ክራር ስፈናገሬ ሆበል ዋሽንቴ አንተ ማስንቆ ሳይሶታትኮ እንኳን ደረሰና ለአዲስ ዘመን ዘመን ጀመርነው ይነገር ለዓለም እንዳይለያየ ዘላለም አሜን። Oh, nana, whoa, whoa, oh, nana, whoa, whoa, what now? So I get it so I get molded. Oh, my God, so Sinagoraret, Delati cigar. So I get it so, be money don't call, Love it, እንኳን ቤትና የለይም አጥር እደጀራለሁ ኮከብ ስቆጥር 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 Love it,
Thank you, Tamar. Wow. As you could see, I was dancing in my seat. What great music. I love it. I just love it. Well, our next guest, Oshra Friedman, was appointed in July 2018 as the Deputy Director General of the Authority for the Advancement of the Status of Women in Israel. Back then, her appointment reflected the highest ranking position within the Israeli government and its national authorities ever attained for a woman of Ethiopian descent until May 2020, when Penina Tamar Panano Shatta became the first Ethiopian to serve as a minister in the Israeli government. Osra, who is also a media personality, an entrepreneur, a social activist, made Aliyah from Ethiopia as part of the clandestine Operation Moses when she was 7 years old. She holds a BA degree in criminology and human resources from the Bar Ilan University and a master's degree in the field of immigration and social absorption from the Rupin Academic College. Osra is currently studying for her doctorate in education and leadership at Haifa University. Wow. She is an amazing, phenomenal woman. And she co-chairs the Shared Society Committee, where she's involved in many projects spearheaded by CJP, Combined Jewish Philanthropies, who are also co-sponsoring this event. These projects are part of a special partnership between the cities of Boston, Massachusetts, and Haifa, Israel. Osra, tell us a little bit about the programs that you are leading at CJP and how is Boston involved in supporting the Ethiopian community in Israel?
Thank you, Colette, and welcome Sigd Bahal. Happy Sigd Day. It is a day. I'm so excited to be here and speaking after Isaac and the song of Tamarda. It will be a little bit complicated, but I'll do my best. It is wonderful that we are able to celebrate Sigd together and bring together our friends in Boston and Haifa and all over the world. It's also very special and meaningful for us because it reminds us of how people overcome distance and language and life experience to become one community, one people, and may I add, one heart. Since 2008, Sigd has been a national holiday in Israel celebrated in most regions and by many different people and communities. It is a holiday with a message that it's timeless, that the yearning of the Beta Israel for Israel, specifically for Jerusalem, is a reminder that communities may live far away from each other, have very different lives, maybe even difficulties, and yet can have emotional and existential need to become together. Boston and the Ethiopian community in Haifa have a long relationship and history of working together. When CGP first started working with Haifa, it was clear that the Aliyah, the immigration of Ethiopian Jews, had become troubled. We made the integration of Ethiopian Jewish our highest priority, and we have sought through our programs to address the most urgent needs: jobs, education, and mutual understanding. This partnership has had a presence in both cities for many years. How many years, you ask? More than 30 years. That Boston-Haifa connection has been changing lives, opening hearts, and building bridges between the sister cities and the strengths that social fabric of both cities. The creation of volunteer partnerships, Ethiopian Jewish committees in both cities to provide advocacy, funding, and expertise in program development for Ethiopian Jewry in Haifa. Volunteers who see eye to eye the social future we seek to create and have been working together with a great love for so many years. And we are wishing to have more years as much as we can. The establishment of Shiluvim, the largest multi-service program for Ethiopians in Israel, a program that symbolizes new and groundbreaking rethinking for the promotion and integration of Ethiopian Jewish in Haifa, and it is also a model for many cities in Israel. The launching of Netivim, a program that enables Ethiopian Israeli to have more successful and vulnerable experience in the army. Netivim supports young Ethiopian Israelis before, during, and after military services by providing supports of and networking for soldiers and their families. The funding of Korat to provide job training, constellation, and developing small businesses, and the promotion of entrepreneurship in the Ethiopian communities. Since the initiation of Korat in 2012, more than 500 men and women have participated in the program, representing 13% of the working Ethiopian population in Haifa. We establish cultural touches like this kind of event to foster great understanding between the Ethiopian communities and the largest Israeli and Boston communities. Through a variety of programs from art gallery openings to history lectures to musical celebrations, the Cultural Touches program also used culture to touch people on the social barriers faced by the Ethiopian Israelis. And more recently, as you know, we have been suffering from COVID-19. We assisted to families impacted by the pandemic, providing laptops to enable remote learning, food packages for families who have lost their income, and resource for small businesses. On the Sigd Day, in a very normal year, we will gather in Jerusalem and plead for peace, brotherhood, mutual guarantee, free love, patience, etc. This year, we add a new request to our prayers. We ask and pray for Corona to pass away quickly as possible without taking any other life. Amen. Today's joint celebration is one more sign of the strength of our relationship and the yearning to be united, and a strong reminder for the importance of Klal Israel. When I was a child, I could remember myself waiting unto the mountain for the parents and the guests and the spiritual leaders to come down from the mountain and celebrate the end of the day, and wishing to each other, next year in Jerusalem, Shana Ba'a B'Yerushalayim Abnuya. And now when we are here, what we are seeking for is to have peace and independence, patience, love, being together, creating, and to give from our heart to others. So at the end of the day, we can be able to create a very, very wonderful world that everyone have his own place. Welcome Sigd Bahal. Happy Sigd to everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Oshra, for your fantastic projects and work, and for being such a so strong social impact entrepreneur and making a difference in Israel. You are the embodiment of the best of Israel and the Ethiopian community, and I thank you for that. And now we are going to hear from the beautiful Tamar again, and I will be dancing. What will you play for us next?
This The next song it's called the Fikr Futurne, or the creation of love in Amharic. This song of a woman empowerment all over the world. Be free, be strong, be independent, be yourself, and conquer the world. Let's grow.
የኢየሩሳሌም ላይ ያላችሁ እኮ ነው እንጀት ቀድማችሁ ስመቱን አትንኳት ተቃውከት የኢየሩሳሌም ላይ እኮ ነው እንጀት ባካችሁ ስምን ተትስክሱ ቅርቦ ሰረካችሁ በምድብራው ሬኔ ባመመላችሁ ፍጽም ፍላጎት ክትጠብቅ ነፍሳችሁ እንዳታስነሱት ከራሱ ሲመጣ አመላችኋለሁ በኋላ ሚዳኳ ፍላጎት ግን ብቻ የመተራከበት አነላው መንጋ እንጀትና ንብረት ትንፋሽ ማጠረኝ ነበሩ ትንፋሴ የፍቅር ፍጡር ላይ የሱ ድንቅ ስራ በፍቅር ተፈጥሬ በፍቅር እኖራለሁ እንከን የለብን ፍቅር እፈልጋለሁ ሰደት ያሉ ፍቅሬ ለእርሱ ነው ቅርሴ ትንፋሽ ማጠረኝ ነበሩ ትንፋሴ
What an amazing song. Thank you, Tamar. And I know we'll be hearing more from you before our program ends. And she is already a rock star. So thank you. I am so delighted to introduce our next guest, special guest, the Deputy Consul of Israel in Miami, Casa Bainasai Harbor. Since rescue missions like Operation Moses and Solomon brought Ethiopian Jews to Israel, the community has experienced both successes and challenges in adjusting to Israeli life. What does the experience of the Israeli Ethiopian community look like through the eyes of the younger generation? Consul Casa, who previously served as the deputy head of mission of the Israeli embassy in Wellington, New Zealand, not New Jersey, New Zealand. Before being assigned to New Zealand, she served as the deputy head of mission of the Israeli embassy in Yangon, Myanmar. Casa, who had made Aliyah from Ethiopia with her family at the age of 10, holds a MA from Tel Aviv University in public policy and a BA from Hebrew University in international relations and education. It is such an honor to meet you, Casa, and happy Sig.
Thank you very much, Colette. Thank you, my colleagues in Boston, for being so creative and holding such a wonderful event. Chag Sigd Sameach, Yemelkam Sigd Yargilene. I'm really happy to be here to speak, among with Oshras, my friend, and Professor Ephraim Yitzhak. It's so wonderful to see you, and you're doing such a great job. Keep up with the amazing work that you're doing. I'm really happy to be here. I'm just, thinking about it, when you said I made Aliyah when I was 10, I remember my life in the village in Ethiopia. I knew nothing. I mean, we pray, we knew exactly what's the features. We pray to Jerusalem, and like Professor Ephraim said, we'll raise our heads up in the sky and say, Shimela, Shimela, Gerachin Jerusalem Dena. We used to ask every bird that fly above our villages if Jerusalem is if it's okay. Tell us some news from Jerusalem. That's our way. I used to dream. I wish I could be a bird just to see Jerusalem. That's how the faith was and the dream was. Being a child in among Beta Israel village. And coming to Israel, we celebrate most of our holidays according to the Torah, according to the Bible. Professor Ephraim Yitzhak mentioned a lot of it. And I think the challenges and also when we came to Israel was that, because when we came to Israel, it's the same. It's not the same holidays the same way that we celebrated. And there is no such a thing secular. And here in Israel, there are secular people, they're driving on Shabbat, they're not keeping Shabbat. For us, there was kind of shock, because when we say, when we came to Jerusalem, we said we're going to celebrate the holidays exactly that we used to do in the time of the temples, first temple, the second temple. And the surprise was how different it is. And not to mention the different color of Jews, of people of Israel, that I was, as a child, never seen a white person that's part of the Beta Israel or people of Israel. And the learning it's a mutual learning. At the same time, they never see a black person as a Jew. That's how we were kind of disconnected lately. And there are many challenges. Most of the Ethiopian Jews, we came from the villages, and Israel was a modern country. It's just natural immigrants challenges. I must say that, that being said, the state of Israel helped a lot to my community to integrate, to gain higher education, to help the elderly, to build the synagogues, and those kind of things. And youngest people can, pursue higher education, and they choose to be wherever they are, wherever they want to be. I chose to be a diplomat because I really believe in the work of diplomats. You can see the recent development of Israel and the peace agreements with the UAE and the Gulf countries. That's the diplomat work. So what I'm trying to say is that the challenges are there. Just the fact that we're coming from a different culture. It's a cultural challenges. In addition, that it's not the same kind of holidays that we celebrate. The way we celebrated it was different. For example, Passover and those kind of things. That was a bit different in terms of, on Passover you break, all your dishes and you bury them, and here it's a bit different. And Shabbat is different, like I said. Those are the challenges. But I must say that our community doing great progress. We have a successful people like Oshra Friedman and our minister. Pnina Tamenoshete, that they are role models to youngest community to achieve education and to pursue education and to be in a decision, to be in the table of the decision makers to make change in the Israeli society.
So thank you so much, Consul Casa. You really hit on a very important point. And I think a lot of people, having been to Israel a couple of times, a lot of people are not aware of how rich the diversity is in Israel. And as you mentioned, we see Israelis of Ethiopian descent becoming members of parliament, high-ranking officers in the IDF. They are scientists, they are entrepreneurs, they are making impact like Oshra in the community. And I would like to ask, do the younger generation of Ethiopian Israelis feel like they're a part of Israeli society today?
Well, definitely. They are born in Israel, most the youngest generation. They are Israelis 100%. There are prejudiced people everywhere. And obviously, Israel is not a perfect country. There are people there with prejudiced ideas. But I must say the youngest people are Israelis for like every Israeli. They're doing Israeli path, like speak Hebrew, like asking a young American, are you American? Of course, they are Israelis. That the challenges are there. Mind you, the parents, most of my parents, I'll give you my example. When I came to Israel at the age of 10, I was the one who was leading the head of the family because my parents did not speak the language. So I'm the one who ran errands. I'm the one who chose the school for me and my siblings. And the gap, the language gap and the cultural gap was so far that the parents became dependent on their children, which is not natural. Usually the parents are, the children depends on the parents and they are the guideline for their education and life. And when we came to Israel, the whole thing became the opposites. We became the guide of our parents. And it's not an easy thing for parents, but we, thank God, we overcome all this, and the youngest generation becoming more assertive, and I'm so optimistic because they are high educated, very active. They speak up and to fix some. There are some challenges to make the society better, and they are educated everywhere. There are doctors, there are they're everywhere in the offices. And they make our future better. Definitely, it's not easy. There are some protests, and there should be, when the protest means that we want our society to be better, and very active people. And those social activists makes our life better because they want to fix things that they're not supposed to be the way they are. And I'm very optimistic and very proud of our young generation. Very proud of them. And you see, there are Sigd celebration. Today, even in the COVID time, everyone in Israel learning and celebrating the Sigd via Zoom. It's not just out of the bloom, because as the youngest generation work, they said, this is our culture. Daniel, my colleague Daniel mentioned that Israel, it's a melting pot. Now the approach is different. Back then, in the time of Ben Gurion, when we recreated the state of Israel, the idea was, we are coming from the diaspora. We need to come back to our culture, to be Israel. Want all of us to be Israelis. And the idea is to have Israeli culture. In Hebrew, if you have a foreign name, you need to convert it to Hebrew name. But now the approach is different. The approach is multicultural, and I kept my name, Casa. And we celebrate each group of the Jewish people celebrate the culture. And as today, even as we speak, a lot of Israelis still celebrating the Sigd, the Chag Sigd holiday in every house. I was just speaking with my friends. Her children are doing comics competition about the holiday of Sigd. Children of 3, 4, 5 years old. Everyone in Israel, not only Ethiopian Jews, every Israeli, which is, it's wonderful. We're learning about each other. We were separated for thousands of years. Each group, adopted their own cultural where they, lived. The Ethiopians in Ethiopia, the Yemeni in Yemen, and the Jews from Iran, and the Jews in India. And we came to Israel learning about each other. And I'll give you one thing. My favorite thing on Yom Kippur, it is the highest holiday for every Jew and every corner in the world. I grew up in Ramle. In Ramle, you can find every kind of Jew from all over the world, the Indian Jews, Yemeni Jews, Ethiopian Jews, you name it. And my favorite thing is to do synagogue hop, because each group has their own synagogue. The Moroccan Jews, the Tunisian Jews. So when I took my little sister, and when I went from one synagogue to another to see how they celebrate the highest holiday of all the Jewish people from all over the world, it's fascinating. It's more or less the same. Everyone is fasting, but what are they wearing? How they pray? It's fascinating. So the multicultural of Israel is so diverse in many ways. It's really amazing, and it's just our diversity is our strength.
Yes, it's so true. Thank you so much, Consul Casa. You are a true inspiration. And I think that there is a lot that we in America could learn from Israel and its integration of Ethiopian Jewry and Jews into its society. I would love to see us celebrate Juneteenth, which is the day that commemorates the abolition of slavery in America, and make it a national holiday like Sigd is in Israel. So we can learn from you. And I just want to thank you for being such an inspiration and for sharing your childhood experience and for giving us a sense of hope, possibility, and how Israel is evolving as a multicultural society. And now I think we are going to have a last song from Tamar, and we will close out after she is done. So thank you.
The following song is called Asham, or Somewhere in Hebrew. It's talking about all the braves and all the dreamers that came all over from Ethiopia to Israel and make their dream come true to go to the Holy Land, Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash, just like my father did in 91 with us, and we came and operate Solomon. So thank you for inviting me for this important evening.
יש מקום שנקרא שלווה, הדרך לשם ארוכה מפרכת, ומתחילים כעת ללכת. אי שם יש מקום לחולמים, הדרך לשם ערפילית מסובכת, והתקווה להם לוחשת, לוחשת. כשתגיע לשם תיגע בעיקר, או תיגע בעיקר, כשתגיע לשם תיגע בעיקר, תיגע בעיקר. אי שם יש מקום לאושרו של כל איש, בדרך לשם יש מפולת, ועוד מעט שוב ייפתח הכביש. ייפתח הכביש. כשתגיע לשם תיגע בעיקר, תיגע בעיקר. כשתגיע לשם תיגע בעיקר, תיגע בעיקר. הטור הולך ולא נגמר, ואף אחד לא נעצר, ובי יש הרגשה מזמן שהי שם בעצם ברן. כשאגיע לשם אגע בעיקר, אגע בעיקר. כשאגיע לשם אגע בעיקר, אגע בעיקר, אגע בעיקר. כשנגיע לשם ניגע בעיקר, ניגע בעיקר, ניגע בעיקר. כשנגיע לשם ניגע בעיקר, ניגע בעיקר, ניגע בעיקר. Signalo, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamar, for your wonderful, enjoyable, outstanding performance. I would like to express my gratitude to all the distinguished speakers who joined us here today, Professor Ephraim Isaac, Oshra Friedman, and the Honorable Casa Benasai Harbor. It was an honor to have each of you on this event. Through the story of Ethiopian Jewry and their cultural profusion, we learn about diversity within the state of Israel, the work to ensure the full assimilation, acculturation, and integration of different groups of immigrants, and how to make a more equitable and inclusive society for all. In recent years, the community has achieved great political representation and more senior ranks in the military, and has enjoyed success in Israel's media mainstream and music scene. At the same time, discrimination and economic and social disparities persist for this community. And that's one of the things I love about Israel. They own their issues and their problem, and I love it. They're not kind of whitewashing it. They're saying, we know we have work to do. And I love having events like this because that's exactly what it does. Through this unique holiday of Sigd, I have personally learned a lot today of the Jewish Ethiopian culture and the experience of being Black and Jewish in Israel. We will continue the dialogue on these topics to educate, to inform, to elevate and amplify, and explore their story unknown to so many. thank you to all of you at home, wherever you are, whether in Boston, New York, Miami, or Israel, for attending this event hosted by the Consul General of Israel in New England and co-sponsored by the Combined Jewish Philanthropy, Get Connected, the Consulate General of Israel in Miami, Hebrew College, Lapin Foundation, and Northeastern University's Hillel. Shalom and goodbye to all of you, and happy Sigd.
Sigd